This lesson's on 6.1 percents and decimals. So in example 1, we're writing percent and decimal. Looking at the model that we have a square, and the unit that we have is, if you count this direction, you have 10 boxes, and if you count downwards, you have 10 boxes. So this is 100 square. And what we're converting the 100 square is percentages and also into decimals. So looking at this, we have the shaded part, and the shaded part, there's 3 shaded parts with the 10 on the height. So the 10 times 3 gives us 30. So we have is 30% of the 100 that is shaded, which also can be written as fraction as 30 over 100, because percent is the same thing as 100. Now, if I simplify, 30 over 100 can be divisible evenly by 10 on the numerator and denominator, giving us then 3 over 10 as simplified. So this is the simplified part. Now, if I want to change our 3 over 10 into a decimal, we would do our in and out. So remember, the numerator is the in and the denominator is the out. So when we have that, we will have the 3 inside of our divisor. So then we have 10. Now 10 cannot go into 3, so that will be a 0. And we introduce a decimal point, and then we can introduce the 0 part right there. So now 10 goes into 30 3 times evenly. So our decimal number will be 0.3. Please make a note when moving the decimal place. So you're going to convert a number that is in decimal to percent, and we're also converting percent into decimal. So here's a clue that we want to write down in our notes, is that we have decimal and percent. And make sure you write decimal first, because alphabetically the D comes first and then the P comes after. And so if you have a percent number that's given to you, you're going to move 2 places to the left because we're moving over to 100th place. If you're given a decimal number and they ask you to convert it into percent, then you will move to the right 2 places over because it's moving over for the 100th place. So that's our little clue right there. So when we do the next examples, we're going to use our decimal and percent and then move it either 2 to the left or 2 to the right. In example 2, it is asking us to write our percentage to decimal. So as stated before in our notes, I'm going to go ahead and put a decimal here and percent over here. And what is given to us right now is 107%, and we want to convert that into a decimal. So we're moving our decimal places to the left, and it's going to be 2 places over for the 100th place. So that becomes 107. And if you don't see the decimal point, it is always on the back of the last number right there. So we're moving that to the left 1 and 2 places over. So your final answer becomes 1.07 as a decimal. In example 3, it is asking us to convert our decimal to percent. So again, if we put down decimal and percent, and this is 0.663, and we want to convert it into percent, so we're going to move our decimal place 2 places to the right. So if we move it to the right, we're going to have, let me rewrite that, 663, and 2 places to the right, so that's going to be 1, 2 places over, so your final answer will be 66.3%. Example 4 is asking us to write our fraction as a percent and also as a decimal. So there's a couple ways to do this. The 4 over 5, you can use equivalent fraction, where you're looking for how many times is 5 can be multiplied to go into 100, because eventually you want to get 100 as your denominator. So 5 goes into 100 evenly by multiplying by 20. So if you multiply by 20 on the numerator, you have to multiply 20 on the denominator as well. So then 4 times 20 gives us 80 right there. So the percentage-wise, this becomes 80% because it is over 100. Now, if I need to convert that into a decimal, I can change that by converting it into a decimal. The 80%, so again, D and P, 80% over here, and we move our decimal place 2 places to the left, so that's 1, 2 places over, and that's going to give us 0.80 as our decimal. Now, the other way to do this is to divide the fraction out. If the denominator cannot be multiplied by a number that goes into 100 evenly, then you would have to just go ahead and divide it out. 4 and 5, remember 4 is in the inside and 5 is on the outside. So 5 goes into 4, cannot, so I put a 0 and I introduce the decimal point. Once I introduce the decimal point, the 0 is introduced as well. 5 goes into 40 evenly by 8, so we go into that 40, and so then 0.8 becomes my decimal. And again, right away, that's a decimal of 0.8, and if I want to convert it into percent, I would move it 2 decimal places to the right. So then 0.8 becomes, or I move it over 2 places, 1 and 2, so that becomes 80% right there. So those are 2 ways to convert our fractions to percent and decimals.